Here.
Supervisor Chris Day.
Here, please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We've got a couple of presentations here that we're going to start off with, and then I'll get to the announcements because I know there's a lot of people waiting on this presentations here based on the 10 times more than average attendance we got going on. So our first set of presentations, back a few weeks back, there was an incident at a softball field. Folks were just playing a game. We had several of our officers, some officers from nearby departments, some other folks from the community, and one of the gentlemen suffered a very severe heart attack, essentially. Almost died on the field. And we're very lucky that we have great officers here in Orangetown, as we do also have great officers north of us in Clarkstown, and a great fire department down in New York City, because representatives from all three of those units were present and kept this radio operator from Clarkstown alive until the paramedics got there. They basically restarted his heart, kept him going, and displayed all the traits that we look for in both the people who serve and protect us in uniform and residents of this town. So we decided to take a moment. We're going to issue meritorious service awards, which is not something we very often give, from the town of Orangetown to these officers and this firefighter, just to show our gratefulness for their willingness to step up to the plate and save a life, because they did. Were it not for their actions, that gentleman would have passed away on that day. So I'm going to read off the names. I'm going to ask who I call up to come up as I read them. Start off with Sergeant James Atchison from the town of Orangetown. Next, we have Police Officer Patrick Casey from the town of Orangetown. Stand up, sit down. Next, from the town of Clarkstown, we have Officer Thomas Latore. And finally, we have a resident of Orangetown and a member of the fire department in the city of New York, Christopher Higgins. If we could all just give them one last round of applause for their heroic actions.
I would add, I was at the game. It was Hibernian House against the Clarksville Inn, and it was kind of a contentious game, back and forth. And then a disaster really happened with a young man collapsing and his heart stopping. It was a chaotic situation, and my contention is that young man was very lucky that 4 trained uniformed personnel who happened to be playing softball with him were there to take charge, tell other people what to do until the ambulance came. And even when the ambulance came, they came sauntering along, and they were directed by the personnel right here to get moving and jump in there, and they did a tremendous job. It was just, I was very proud of them, and I was just amazed at how good they were at that scene. Thank you.
You want to do a photo, Balzer photo? Yeah, we just want to bring them up and. Yeah, you guys want to line up in front and we'll stand behind. We're already kind of tiered here. Yeah, can you get us up?
All right.
Is this working?
Yeah, it's fine. It might have left.
All right. into the next set of presentations, Pearl River, as a substantial part of the town of Orangetown, did a great job in representing this town recently. The team that won the New York State 11 and under softball championship for Little League is here today to receive certificates from the town. We want to offer a round of applause congratulating them first. I want to first invite their head coach, their manager, Billy Collins, up again. And I think Tim McGee, if he's here. Yeah, Tim, can you come up too? Is Joni Bork here or no? I don't. And Matt Lucky, sorry. And this his certificate must be further lower. All right. So, you want to say a few words first? And there's a podium right there if you want to. Okay.
There's so many people to thank in the whole community, from the fundraising to allow us to go up to Glens Falls and be in the state championship, all the lodge, we had to be there for 4 days, all the support from the parents, the great coaches, Matt Lucky and Tim McGee, and especially the hard work of the girls who truly were a blessing. They worked so hard. They came to every practice. They loved each other. They worked hard. And really one of the biggest things in their mind was they just didn't want it to end. And I told every team that I ever coached, I say, you know, this is it. This is a tournament. There's only going to be one team at the end of the year out of every 11 and under team that's going to be happy at the very, very end. Only one team. Okay? And I say that all the time to kind of brace them because it might not, because chances are it's not going to happen. This year it happened. So they were the last team in the state to be smiling at the end of the season. So congratulations to them. They were awesome. Right, and there's so many businesses in the community that also donated so much time, energy, and money towards all the things that we had to get done, that I'm not going to mention them because I know I'm going to forget one or two and then I'm going to feel bad, but they were amazing. The parents were great, dropping them off, picking them up, constant practices every day. Our president, Joni Bork, John Sullivan, Mike Wood, all were great, giving us practice times, scheduling events, giving us heads up on what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what to expect. All those things were great as far as getting us to where we wanted to go, and the police and fire department. You know, there's going to be people in places that
The good supporting coach staff, right?
So instead of going on, I apologize to anyone who I didn't forget, that I forgot to try to give a blanket thank you to Pearl River and Orangetown. And thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Billy. So we've got certificates for each of the girls here. I want to call them up and give them their moment in the sun here. They earned it, that's for sure. So I'm going to call out the name. I'll pass it off to your manager here, and then they'll hand it over to you. You guys led them so well, I think you deserve to present them with a certificate. So, Maddie Ayers. Heather Collins. Greta Swanson. Kayla Damon. Sammy McGee. Sophia Brown. Kira Lucky. Antonia, if I mispronounce this, I apologize. Guglielmo? Guglielmo, sorry. And I'm Italian too, believe it or not. Casey Urban. Claire Sullivan. Kat Arnold. And Caroline Tate. And I also do have certificates for Mr. Collins. right here. Mr. McGee and Mr. Lucky as well. Oh, and sorry, we have Joni, one for her as well, if you could take it when you see her. Yeah.
Girl, stand in front of you.
Yeah, everyone, why don't you come in front? We'll get a big photo as a group.
Walk dirty.
We can probably see over. We're good, right? Yeah. Can you see us? Yeah. Great, thank you very much. Congratulations, everyone. Great job. Congratulations. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move for a 5-minute recess to allow the room to clear if they'd like.
Second.
Second by Councilman Divney. All in favor? All right. So is there a second? Councilman Troy, all in favor? Aye. All right, before we move to the first public hearing, I'm going to hit the announcements I skipped before because we wanted to let the softball players get out of here. This Saturday, September 8th, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., we have our special town board meeting in which the department heads will be presenting their budgets. That's, again, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. this Saturday. Also on Saturday, September 8th, the Empire Hose Company No. 1 of Piermont will be hosting the 106th Annual Rockland County Volunteer Firefighters Association Convention and Parade. That starts at 2 p.m. Tuesday, September 11th, we have the 17th Anniversary Remembrance Service for the town of Orangetown. That'll be at 6 p.m. At the Town Hall Lawn Monument at the corner, right there in the front of Town Hall, or the back of Town Hall. Just a general statement, September is actually National Hunger Action Month. As part of that, ShopRite in Pearl River will be hosting a Help Bag for Hunger event during the day on September 19th, in which different folks, including myself, will be bagging groceries in order to raise money and raise donations to help fight hunger in this area and throughout the country. Saturday, September 29th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Orangetown PD is having its open house, its 21st annual open house, which is a great event for kids. All are welcome, and that'll be here again at the police department. On Tuesday, October 2nd, we're going to be having and this has just hit the agenda today, we finally got it locked in, our public outreach session for the downtown Pearl River revitalization study that we have going on. That's Tuesday, October 2nd from 7 to 9 p.m. at Pearl River High School. There'll be a big group meeting, and then there'll be breakout sessions. If you know anyone who's interested in the future of downtown Pearl River, whether they have a business there, they live there, or they want to live there, they should come and offer their thoughts as to what's best for downtown Pearl River to get it stronger and keep it growing and thriving into the future. It's the major community outreach event for this study, and we want maximum participation. That's Tuesday, October 2nd, 7 to 9 p.m. at the high school. Then Saturday, October 13th, the Mont Doherty Earth Observatory over in Palisades is having an open house, which is free and open to the public, though you can donate, $5 suggested donation, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's 10/13 on Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They'll have science demonstrations. You'll get speeches from world-renowned researchers, etc. And finally, on October 20th, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., there'll be a paper shredding event in coordination with our town clerk, Rosanna Sfreja, and sponsored by the Rockland County Solid Waste Management Authority. That'll be here at Orangetown Town Hall. You get to do, I think, 2 things that you can carry, 2 boxes, and then you have to go to the back of the line. If you have more than that, you really shouldn't have more than that, I guess, but you would have to go to the back of the line then. Okay, we're going to go straight to the continuation of our commercial building internal subdivisions public hearing. That was continued due to a delay in noticing the subject. This is to amend the town code to change the requirements for going to the planning board for commercial building internal subdivisions. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing? Moved. Councilman Troy with the motion, Councilman Divney with the second. All in favor? Aye. Is there anyone here? No one is signed in. Is there anyone here to speak in public comment on the commercial building internal subdivisions hearing? Okay. And would the town clerk please confirm if we've had any input on the and communications?
There's nothing further.
Nothing further. And we had the county planning weighed in on this already, or?
Yes, that was in the last.
Okay. This is not for H&A. This is pre-H&A. H&A is the next one, sorry. Good question. Okay. Before we close, let's make sure, is there anything anyone wants to discuss on the subject up here before we close the public comment session? No? No? We're all good? Jane, do you want a brief summary of what this is for everyone? We'll leave this.
There's been a concern for having existing commercial buildings that just want to divide into, say, two spaces. It was one owner, and now they want to lease out part of their building to another business, that they would have to go before the planning board, which everyone knows can be a lengthy process to just subdivide. So if there is no impact on, say, parking or any site, then the building department now can push that through as a regular building permit application and facilitate moving the construction along faster for the applicant.
Any questions?
Basically, it changes like a pizzeria, and it changes owners, and it's still going to be a pizzeria.
That's correct. The only time it would go back to the planning board is if I feel that it has a negative impact or larger impact on the development.
Like
If
it requires more parking spaces?
requires more
or
parking,
change
a
of
change of use.
Yeah.
If it goes to a greater use, then I have the authority then to send that.
And this is more in line with neighboring towns, right? Like in Clarkstown, I know you don't.
Correct.
Right now, we require planning board for any sort of subdivision, but you're not required anywhere else to do that.
Correct. Internal subdivisions in neighboring towns have never been required.
Okay, so we're trying to save people a month or two application time, essentially.
Correct.
All right. Any other questions for Jane? No? Okay, thank you, Jane. Thank you. All right, so does someone want to move to, barring any further public comments, anyone want to move to close the public hearing?
I'll make
Councilman Batari with the motion, Valentine with the second. Okay. We're going to move on to the, we got to do secra first. Oh, sorry, all in favor? All right. Resolution for secra to declare lead agency regarding this subject. Is there a motion?
For Nick Deck.
NEGDEC with, for,
That's all part of it, right?
it's all
Lead
included,
agency
yeah.
and
The
negative declaration.
The secret declaration and negative declaration are in there. So that's from Councilman Shore with the motion. Is there a second? Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. A couple more pages down. We have the actual resolution to amend the town code to adopt this local law to change the subdivisions law. Is there a motion on this one? Councilman Dibney, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. So now we are going to move on to the next public hearing, which was the, actually, no, we can't yet. It's still not 8:05. We'll get started with some presentations here. So we have we could probably get maybe one of the libraries in here before we do the public hearing. All right, so Orangeburg Library, the next step in this process here for today's agenda is that our libraries in South Orangetown, which are funded directly by the town, are going to come and present their proposed budget for their portion, their library for this year. Also, other special districts like the Bluffville Fire Department, the ambulance corps, and the paramedics. We'll get started on that. We'll kick back to the public hearing because I know there are people here interested in that, and then we'll get back to that again. So if the Orangeburg Library can step up to the plate here. Yeah, up to the podium, please. And just brief, few-minute summary. We have the written stuff for the top line stuff here, and then we'll take any questions and go from there.
Okay, thank you. Orangeburg Library respectfully submits its funding request for 2019. The library's Board of Trustees is requesting that the Orangeburg Library receive a 2% increase over 2018 appropriation in the amount of $571,200, a total increase of $11,200 over the prior year. In seeking this increase, the library's board was quite mindful of the difficult decisions faced by the town board, particularly the constraints imposed by the tax cap. This amount includes $5,000 in the legal fees budget line to cover anticipated expenses resulting from our library consolidation project, and $6,000 in the equipment line for the replacement of the library's obsolete server. Most of the other budget lines will remain exactly flat. Our current fund balance is $312,000, and it will be further depleted by a transfer of $57,500 in 2019. We have been advised that the minimum we must have in our reserves to cover the months of January and February prior to receiving the town funds is $170,000. That leaves $84,000 for emergency repairs to the building or to cover the library in case of natural disaster prior to receiving any insurance payment. That's all I have. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions for the library? Good.
No, fine.
All right.
Good,
Thank you very much. It looks like we can get at least one more in. Tappan Library? We have, I don't see her here. Is anyone from Tappan here? There we go. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Raleigh Tozer. I'm the Vice President of the Tappan Library. Today, we proposed to the town board that the board appropriate 2% increase in funds for the Tappan Library. As in the past, this has primarily been driven by the debt that we incurred to modernize the building. And on that score, I think we're pleased to report that we think we finally solved the HVAC problem. It turned out that the program that was installed was a sort of untested and sort of ineffective program, and we turned it Johnson Controls, which I understand the town board has used for its internal controls, and they managed to put a new system in that seems to have resolved the problem. So we're very much comforted that that thing is behind us, and our expenses will be basically under control. The other thing I think I want to mention is that the libraries in South Orangetown are interested in forming a school district library, and would hope to get all the 4 or 5, if you include Piermont, libraries in South Orangetown as part of that effort. So that's something that the town board should consider as they consider the budgets. But as I said, our request is a 2% increase, which we think will help us to reduce our debt and get that off our backs, and then we'll be able to get back to normal budgets, we think. So I think you have all the papers. I didn't think I'd be doing this, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
A quick question. Do you have on the top of your head your current fund balance? Approximate?
Yeah, it gets down to about $150,000 at the end of the year. That's my sense here. See if I can tell you that. It's very small. It's we have very much gotten to the end of the year and decided to use that to reduce the mortgage on the building. So it's in the very small numbers. It's 5% or something like that.
5%?
Yeah. That's my best guess.
Approximate, yeah. I understand. Any questions? No? All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I think we'll do one more, and just for everyone that I'm sure is wondering why I'm not going to public hearing, we're not allowed to start before 8:05 p.m. We're not trying to keep you waiting for no other reason than that. Palisades Library.
Good evening. This is Maria Gagliardi, our director, and my name is Marjorie Galen, and I am the president of the Board of Trustees for the Palisades Library. I've lived in Palisades for more than 25 years and have grown to love our little hamlet, and especially have come to appreciate our library as a special community resource. This past year, our library has been busier than ever with programs. Participation in our children's summer reading program was at an all-time high, and our residents are enjoying the new technology that enables us to download ebooks and audiobooks. We are also meeting with directors and trustees from several other Orangetown libraries to research a plan to consolidate as a special district library system. It's an exciting time be involved with libraries as libraries evolve in these increasingly technological times, while still being physical touchstones for our communities. As you know, our Board of Trustees submitted a request for a 0% increase with our 2019 budget. Our proposed budget shows an operating deficit of $26,500, which will come from our reserves, as will funding for some necessary capital projects. At the time we submitted our paperwork to the Town Council, we were in the early stages of investigating an update to our 22-year-old HVAC system. We anticipated costs of $30,000 plus, but after hiring an engineer, have been told to expect a cost of closer to $100,000 to update the system. We are getting estimates and applying for grants, but will need to cover a large portion of this update from our reserves. We hope, given these expenses, that you will approve our budget at the 0% increase. Thank you for your support. Any questions?
Questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're at 8:05, perfect. All right, so switching gears a little bit, we're going to go to the public hearing on the HNA Palisades Premier Conference Center, which is for a zone change from LO to OP, which the only change in those two zones is to permit hotels as opposed to conference centers. Do you have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Troy. All in favor? Great. And could the town clerk please let us know about any of the circulation issues and notifications and such?
Yep, we have both the notice of posting and the affidavit of publication.
All right, great. First, we're going to have the applicant come up and give a brief presentation again, and then we'll open it up to public comment. And for when we get to the public comment for this, it's a limit of 5 minutes per person, which will be a timer that I'll keep here because we don't have a clock in this room compared to other room, and I'll just give you a signal. But the applicant, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Supervisor Day, members of the town board, town attorney, staff. My name is Lino Sciaretta. I'm a partner at the law firm Montalbano, Condon and Frank. I'm here tonight on behalf of HNA Palisades Premier Conference Center. This is the old former IBM site. Dolce, now it's HNA. We are here on a request for a zone change from laboratory office to office park. We had petitioned the board back in, I believe it was July, and the reason for the request for the zone change, because in HNA's view and ours, it seems to make the most sense to really account for what's been going on at this site for a number of years. We were last here actually about a year ago in July of 2017 for an expansion of the site. We were here before the planning board for an expansion from 206 overnight accommodations to 302 rooms. That was approved last year. And it's depicted on the plan, which this evening with me I have Jesse Coakley from Mazer. He'll go through a little bit of the overview, but that proposed, or that project, which was approved by the planning board, is represented. Jesse, if you could show them in that red square right there. So for years, this property has been used, traditionally was a conference center for IBM, and then subsequently continued to be a corporate conference center. In the past, and according to the special permit, which this project is subject to, overnight accommodations were only for folks who were using the conference center facilities for corporate training, get-togethers, and what have you. What happened was our predecessor, HNA's predecessor, for a number of years, and this was brought to our attention, was using this facility as a hotel, if you will, to accommodate overnight guests who were not using the property for conference centers. And when our client, HNA, purchased it, they were made aware of that they were actually operating in violation of the special permit, and they ceased that. So we're here today really to petition this board to change the zone because it makes the most sense. We have overnight accommodations, and what HNA is trying to do, they want to make this a premier destination. And again, they would allow the property to continue operating as a training center, catering, also for weddings. There was an article in the Rivertown, which we attached to our petition, that basically kind of gives an overview of what the HNA would like to do for this site. So without further ado, I'll just turn it over to Jesse. He'll just give you an overview of the project.
Good evening. As Mr. Sciaretta said, my name is Jesse Coakley. I'm with Mazer Consulting, the engineering firm that did the site plan for the proposed expansion. If you're familiar with the site, you get the majority of the access is off of 9W. You go up the lengthy driveway. It's a nice wooded area. The parking lot is on your left, and the drop-off area is directly in front of you. On the right over the pond is where the overnight accommodations are, and the extension would be on the east side. So this is an aerial of the existing. I also have with me just a proposed blow-up, so you can kind of see where that expansion was occurring. It's going to kind of go right on the border of the lake. To the north is the golf course. We did get all of the necessary approvals from both the planning board, the zoning board, and ACABOR for the landscaping and screening and the variance for the side setbacks. So that's all been. The property is approximately 106 acres. As Lino mentioned, it's currently zoned LO. Looking to change that to OP strictly to permit the hotel use. A couple things that were covered in the site plan approval, which I'll just, for your knowledge, the amount of parking on the site that's required would be, with the addition, is 644 spaces. 645 spaces will be there total, so we'll have one more than the minimum required by the town. The occupancy currently only gets to about 60% in the parking at any one time. And we also did a traffic study to see what this additional 96 rooms of hotel use would do to the traffic. The back exit off the site is really towards Route 340. No one really uses that. The majority of the traffic goes out towards 9W. And what the traffic study found was that the hotel use during the peak hour of 96 rooms would basically add about 1 car per minute to the traffic during the peak hour. So that's usually in the morning and afternoon, 1 car per hour going in and out of the driveway total, 1 car per minute. So that's the total number of trips that's being added to the property with this use, which again was reviewed and approved under site plan. The other thing I just wanted to mention too was we are in receipt of a letter from Rockland County Department of Planning that talks about the 3 other adjacent parcels that are zoned LO that are northwest and northeast of the site. Those are, on this corner is, on the northeast corner is the, excuse me, I get the name, SKA Power Solutions, which is an electrical engineering company. An electrical engineering firm, excuse me. I don't think they would be hampered if this board so made this zone change. Wouldn't really affect them. I don't think they intend to operate a hotel on that piece of property. And then the other one is on the northwest property, or northwest corner of the property on Route 340, which is the American Legion. Again, I don't think it really has any impact on this, so I just wanted to address that as well. If you have any, any other site plan questions or engineering questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for the engineering side?
Want to hear from the public first.
Okay,
Reserve the right.
sure. Any other general things that are not site plan or engineering related before we go to public comment?
This was brought up in our petition, and I think, I don't know if I said it, but the reason for the request, if you look at your zoning code right now, the only thing that's not permitted currently in the LO zone is a hotel. So when you look at your use table, we're really just adding hotels, because everything you can do in OP, you can do in LO, with the exception of the hotel. So really, we're looking just for a text change and a change to your zoning map. That's why it made the most sense just to change it. And it would, again, further an as-of-right use for the hotel as opposed to a specially permitted use. Thank you.
And Chris?
Yes, Rob.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is on, but 2 things with respect to the current status of the property. Several years ago, it did get a special permit from the town board that permits catering. And so theoretically, if you had a wedding there, you could use the accommodations as well. So it did have that approval previously. With respect to the Department of Planning letter, they asked to look at those other parcels, not so much as the impact on the parcels, but whether or not the town wanted to look into changing those to the same zone. As Mr. Sciaretta pointed out, really the only change between the 2 zones would be to permit a hotel. So with the current status of those 2 properties that they brought up, it really wouldn't make much of a difference to change it. So really the only reason, and the reason they're seeking is because everything that's permitted in LO is permitted in OP, again, except for an actual hotel.
Well, probably because they didn't want hotels in the LL zone.
That's right.
Rob, question, that statement from the Rockland County Planning, does that necessitate an override, or is it just an informational thing? Or
No, it just says it recommends
to
a
look at it.
modification. Town should do an analysis to determine if the parcels that remain LO, or if they should remain LO or OP. So if you discuss that.
So all we have to do is
will
just say
address
whether or
that.
not we want to, and we're
Right.
good. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so we're going to head and open this up for the public portion of the public hearing. I have one person signed in. There may be more that didn't sign in, but we'll call on you guys to show your hands.
Turn that around so people,
Yeah, but we've already seen it now. Let's turn that so the folks can see.
or maybe put it on that table, Lino,
Yeah,
so they
do
can
that.
see it.
Thank you. So the first person signed in is Fred Little, it looks like. Sorry. Palisades. And you have 5 minutes. We don't have a clock, so I'm going to do a 1 minute hand up if you get there, and then I'll
Okay, I'll
wave
try
you
not
off.
to use the whole 5 minutes.
Whatever you want, you got your time.
And bear with me for a second, because I'm kind of confused by the presentation. I remember when the IBM Conference Center approvals went up, and members of the community raised concerns that this might be a hotel. And we were assured that it was a wholly owned property of IBM, and it was going to be used primarily for IBM's own internal events, and wasn't really even going to be used very much for external conference events as a business-to-business venue, but it was primarily IBM. And then, that changed a little bit, and then IBM sold to Dolce, and now we find, and the attorney here has admitted that Dolce was engaging in an illegal use of the property, which apparently was not sanctioned by the town during that period. So there's a curious lack of enforcement of basic regulations going on in the town in that period. And now we're asked that because Dolce sold its business to another business, which is not based in Orangetown, and they bought that business with a non-conforming use, which they apparently wish to expand at the present, and which the town has kind of de facto jumped in and approved strangely, even though the zoning doesn't allow it. It seems rather premature. And what's to happen next? Do we get a water park? Do we get an additional tourist attraction? There's some cynicism about whether any bounds that the boards of the town place today will be honored tomorrow. And I think that this is a significant case where at each stage, the owners of the property have, when they have sold the property, done so in bad faith and not in the interest of the community that surrounds the property. And I think that while I understand that the town has a need to look at ratables, always a very important thing, ratables, we also need to look at the stability of the communities which those ratables are to serve, and we need to look at whether or not this application really serves the community located in its vicinity. And I would suggest that two things. One, I think a simple use variance can accomplish all of the current approved capacity. And the need for the larger change is unnecessary, premature, and if at some future point they wish to expand the property further, then sure, consider it, but why give them that as of right? What is the town getting in return for that today? And I would also ask if the town has strictly adhered to all of its procedures in these premature approvals, or if the planning boards might be open to Article 78 proceedings regarding their observation of town's procedure. Thank you very much.
Just to clarify, the applications were not in front of the town board, they were in front of the planning.
That's correct, that's correct.
And I'm hoping when they made that application, it wasn't with the knowledge of the boards that they were going to come in here a year later and ask for.
And it may be the case that the planning boards did not carefully check the zoning and carefully check the actual
I can answer the
use.
question rather than, so what happened in order is the HNA came in for the expansion of the conference center. In the process of that thing before the planning board, they then determined, planning board noticed this was not what it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to have a hotel also. The application that was under the expansion of the conference center, it was approved as a conference center expansion, which is separate and apart. If we were to deny the zone change today, it's exactly the same as it was before, which is an approved expansion of a conference center for that many rooms, 100 rooms. So they're two separate issues. One's expanding the conference center by 100 rooms, which is done, decided, and already approved, and they could probably break down tomorrow. And I don't know when their building permit is. And then, do we then make these rooms a hotel as opposed to just a conference center? It's two separate questions.
And the one is approved, the second is not, and I'm arguing that there is no compelling reason.
I understand that. Yeah, I'm just clarifying for everyone else the timeline. Thank you. All right, now, no one else? Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I mean, as someone who does a lot of real estate law, I find it hard to believe that the applicant didn't know that they couldn't use this as a hotel.
Paul, can you point the microphone?
Because, I mean, you're spending, I'm just going to repeat, the applicant's spending a lot of money on this property, and I find it very hard to believe that the applicant wouldn't know what they could use the property for and what they couldn't use the property for. You're not going to spend that kind of money without doing a ton of due diligence and finding exactly what's permitted in that zone and what's not permitted in the zone. So, I mean, I don't buy that argument. They knew exactly what they were able to do before they bought that building.
Is there anyone else who's interested in speaking on the subject? Yes. Hello, Carol. How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Board members. I'm Carol Baxter, a resident of Palisades. I hope you all had a wonderful Labor Day. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you about this important zoning issue in Palisades. The Palisades community has had a long and positive history with IBM, and although HNA is new since 2016, they have been a welcome newcomer to our community. Over a year ago, HNA appeared before the Planning Board requesting to build additional hotel rooms. The community had no issues with that. We just learned last week that HNA representative appeared at the recent workshop meeting to request a zoning change from LO to OP. And for tonight's meeting, there were no signs posted and abutting neighbors did not receive a letter. At their first appearance to the Planning Board on July 26, 2017, requesting the hotel room addition to their executive training center, they had to satisfy the typical dozens of conditions for approval. In response, the Planning Board stated, and I quote, number 5, "The plans have labeled the addition as a proposed 5-story hotel addition. Please be advised a hotel is not permitted by right in the LO zone district. A use variance will be required for a hotel. Please clarify the proposed use. The executive conference facility allows housing for the use of participants and administrators." The Planning Board at that time did not recommend a zoning change. The suggestion of a change from LO to OP does not appear anywhere in the Planning Board's response in the preliminary or the final approval. There are other hotels in the town of Orangetown. Holiday Inn on Route 303 is zoned CC, and it is a hotel with conditional use by Planning Board for the hotel. I have a copy of the zoning thing here where it says that. The Marriott Residential, which is a true hotel on Route 303, is LO zoned and can operate as a hotel, most likely with a use variance or by special permit. It is common in zones to have special permits to enhance the zone for other uses. For example, the Rockland Country Club, which is abuts this property of the HNA, is zoned R80, which is a residential property, but with conditional use by the planning board. It can be a golf course, a tennis, and a swim club. The Palisades community is very much against a zoning change to OP. If HNA wants the approval primarily for a hotel, then simply use the use variance recommended by the planning board in July 2017. That will suffice all their needs, and we are in full support. We understand about zoning changes. When HNA decides to sell, OP zoning will make it more attractive to buyers to purchase over 100 acres of secluded land in close proximity to New York City. There will be more flexibility on how it can be developed in the future. Blue Hill Plaza, which is OP, is 21 stories tall. We are against any kind of allowance that would open the door to that kind of development. Their first preliminary was July 2017. They went through ACA board, zoning board, and some other board. And for example, October 4th, they were approved for a side yard variance. On December 13th, 2017, the planning board gave final approval for the addition of these rooms. Why now is HNA, after 9 months after being approved, requesting a zoning change? Especially after a use variance was recommended at the start of their process 14 months ago. I urge you not to vote tonight on this very important issue that opens future change to the environment and fiber of historic Palisades, until we all understand all the reasons why and the ramifications of a zoning change of this magnitude. Once it's changed, we can't go back. Thank you for your understanding and attention to this issue.
Thank you. To a couple of things that were brought up, Rob, can you clarify? Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? I just did want to clarify one thing from that real quick, Rob.
Yeah.
A use variance, is that transferable upon sale to, if someone were to buy a property that has a use variance?
Yes.
Okay,
So, and I'm sure Mr. Sciaretta will address it, but a use variance is in essence the same thing as what they're seeking now. This board sets the zones. Now, obviously, this board didn't set this zone originally, but this board sets the zone. When somebody goes for a use variance, they're seeking a variance from what this board has set. What they're seeking to do, rather than a use variance, which, in my experience, I don't know that the Orangetown Zoning Board of Appeals has ever granted a use variance. Rather than get a use variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals, excuse me, they're asking this board to change the zone so that a use variance is not necessary. So in essence, they're basically saying, to the legislature, this board, look, rather than appeal what you've already set, we're asking you to change it as the legislature, which calls for a public hearing and calls for, folks to come up and, give their opinion on the proposed legislative acts. So that's really what's happening. Again, in essence, the zone change and the use variance is the same result. Once there's a use variance granted for the property, it runs with the property.
And is there any, I need this to be 100% clear, is there anything else at all, whether in terms of height of structure or use, other than the hotel part, that is different from the two zones? Like, are we going to, if someone were to decide to try to build X number of stories of office building, would they be able to build it in one zone or the other zone, irrelevant as to, is it exactly the same?
Not because of this zone change. No different.
No difference between the two zones. So if someone could build an office tower in one, they could build it in another, is what you're saying?
Correct. And again, I know somebody brought up Blue Hill, and we did look into that. That was a separate matter. In terms of the Hilton that's there, again, that was built, that's OP also, and that's why a hotel was permitted to be built there. But no, the only change, and actually I had a conversation with a citizen last week about it, the code can be confusing. The only difference between what is currently permitted in the LO zone, for which this is currently zoned, from changing it to OP, is that now a hotel use will be permitted. And here's the other thing is, it's only for this particular parcel as well. So again, in essence, it's the same as a use variance being granted only for this parcel. This parcel is being changed to OP, which will permit a hotel. Just like if the Zoning Board of Appeals would grant a use variance, it would permit the use as a hotel. again, if the zoning board of appeals felt the criteria are met, or if this board feels it's proper to do a legislative act of changing it to OP.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. And again, just to reiterate, it's 5 minutes, and the one finger up, because we don't have a timer, is 1 minute, and then.
I have a letter from a neighbor who couldn't make it tonight.
Thank you very
And also
much.
I have an actual copy of the actual difference between.
Yes,
the
thank
zones.
you.
This is just some handout. Sorry.
Oh, you have multiple. Good.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Nemestia. I'm a resident of Palisades. First of all, I'd like to say H&A has been a good and welcomed neighbor in Palisades, and their tax contribution to our town is much needed and appreciated. However, I and many of us in Palisades oppose the proposed LO to OP zone change for the H&A property. H&A Group is going through deep financial difficulties to the tune of nearly $80 billion as of June of this year. I handed you excerpts from various business articles stating H&A's plan to sell off assets and real estate, including sales of nearly $17 billion worth just this year. The majority of them are hotel and resort facilities around the world, and H&A is currently marketing an additional $4 billion in real estate in the United States alone, much of those properties in New York State. We're wondering if this is the real agenda of the H&A to sell the property with a more flexible zoning. As for the zoning change, after watching the July 17th Town Board meeting, it came to my attention that the board may have overlooked slight discrepancies in the zoning code. I've also handed to you on the second page copies of the wording used in the current LO zoning with the highlighted difference as it appears in the OP zoning. Under the general accessory uses, the OP also allows for convenience shops and services serving primarily employees, et cetera, Note the word primarily, but it does not state exclusively, opening up the possible option of a mini mall, maybe a 7-Eleven or something, that other people can drive into. It is that statement that can be used by an attorney to change the face of the H&A property permanently. For that reason, I strongly support a special use permit or hotel variance as the only option the H&A Group has to legitimize its hotels. The zone change would also affect the Skate property, possibly allowing them to open something like a 7-Eleven or something down there. Since a legitimate hotel is what they want, such a permit or variance should suffice. If, however, the goal is to sell the property and market it with a wider range of uses, then the office park zone change is absolutely unacceptable to Palisades. Thank you. And here's a copy, actually, for you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other folks for public comment? Yes.
Hi, my name is Seta Tennell, and I'm a Palisades resident. And I don't have anything prepared, but I just want to tell my story. In 1999, my husband and I bought a house in Palisades, and we bought it to become the fabric of the neighborhood. We bought a little cottage that we wanted to expand, and when we submitted the plans, we asked for a 3-foot variance, 3, not 30, not a big thing. And we were told by the board at the time that we knew what we were getting into when we bought the property, and we were denied. Not another word to be said. So I don't know your name, but Mr. Devaney, to your point, they're a large corporation. They have attorneys, they know what they're doing, all right? So if the people that are making their lives, raising their children, living here, dying here, do not have the benefit of getting a variance, I don't see why a corporation, which is undoubtedly looking for more upside potential, should have that right. And I don't know, that's basically all I have to say. I really think that when you do something, when you make some sort of variances, it should be for the people that live here and not for people that want to make money off of it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else who is here for public comment? Yes, Eileen.
Good evening, members of the board. I was one of the founding people of the IBM site when they came into Palisades. We had a civic association then, and we met with them, and we were very happy that IBM came into that site. And what I'll do is I'll get to page 7 of the public hearing, and I should like to first take a look at your expression after taking a hard look at all of the potential environmental impacts that might result from the proposed action. Now, for example, I was going to mention the traffic study, but I understand the applicant did the traffic study. So perhaps he could make it available to us and see what is it? How many cars per minute will be exiting from the site? And the signage. Will there be signage up on 9W advertising this hotel? Because I'm assuming this hotel is open to the public for whatever reasons people want to use a hotel. On page 8 of the presentation tonight, of the handout. Oh, by the way, talking about the handout, what was the notice of posting? There were no signs on 9W or 340 about this public hearing tonight, where there usually is a stick in the ground and there's a sign that there's a hearing proposed tonight. There was no public posting. None of the abutting neighbors got any letters within so many feet. So carefully think about this change tonight. You might be held accountable by an Article 78. We drove around that neighborhood all weekend up until yesterday. There wasn't one notice of posting about this zone change. Okay, back to page 8. The reasons for supporting this determination. Okay, now I'm going to piggyback off of what Mrs. Nemesti just said. Under the current zone, which is LO, right? Okay. There are various uses under LO. Now they want to go to OP. So, okay, let's look at OP. OP says the same use is permitted by right as LIO. Item number 2, hotels, conference centers. Okay, so now same uses as LIO says, same as LO, except no executive conference lecture facilities. So I know I'm not the brightest star in the comment, but it's very confusing. So anyway, getting back to that page 8, they talk about the proposed use would be consistent with the town's master plan. Now, the town's master plan was back in 1988. I was also on that committee. And it's a long time ago, so maybe it's time that our zoning codes be updated. This is 2016. Some of the codes in our town book go back to 1966. And it was 1988 the last time the town's master plan was changed or amended or what have you. It says, and is otherwise in the best planning and zoning interests of the town and the owner of the parcel. Does not mention about the abutting neighbors. Page 9, potential impacts. Based on the short environmental assessment form, which I hope is available for us to see, which is really a waste of time because it's very, what would I say, innocuous. I've always said we should only have a long environmental impact no matter who comes before the board, because the short environmental assessment forms gets you in trouble, like it did with Aloof. Is a copy of that short environmental assessment form available tonight for us to look at? The traffic study was done by the applicant, so how can you say that a hard, what's that section again? A hard look. Who gave a hard look? Nobody. Historic and archaeological resources. This is within, it's surrounded by a historic zone. Oh yeah, on page 10. Whereas following due notice, a public hearing, which I assume was conducted, I don't know what public hearing that was. And if you give me the date of that.
This is written in
No, it says
anticipation.
was conducted. Okay, so you're referring to tonight.
Right. 20 seconds, sir.
Following a due notice. Now, due notice, do you mean by the abutting neighbors were noticed? Were there signs put up on the, in the area? Say no. And I think that, I don't know the name of the attorney that you said you're representing. Who are you with? Montalbano. Okay. But
Eileen, that's
anyway,
5, thank you.
I didn't
Sorry.
understand what he said before, but I think they were represented before by Mr. Quinn. But anyway, that's not here nor there. But
Thank
anyway,
you,
getting
Eileen.
back to the OP zone.
Eileen,
Yes,
I'm
Bill.
sorry, that's 5 minutes. We have to, yeah.
Are you sure?
It goes quickly, I know, but it is. That's why I
That
have
was
the
very
timer.
quickly for me, you know that.
I know.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just get an answer or clarification, because two people mentioned it, about one, what was done for notice, and two, what's required for a zoning change for notice? Rob, could you clarify what's required?
Do you want to let us know what they actually did?
What one's done was we have the Orangetown notice of public hearing, which is posted in Town Hall, and then we have the affidavit of publication in the Journal News.
So is this one? Is this one that is not? Like, there's something about posting signs. Is that for a different type of thing? I just want to make for the record. I just want to make sure everyone's clear. So that's for like a zoning variance. You do the posting of the signs, but for a zone change by the board, it's publication in the newspaper. So they wouldn't have found the signs. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, sir. I have to ask you to. There's no need for the shouting out there. The public notice is done. I just want to make sure we did everything according to the law. So there was no requirement for signs to be posted in this particular case. Okay.
There is. 10.44
There is
whenever an application is made to the town board for a special permit or zone change, hold a public hearing on due notice.
Is there an
Send written
abutting neighbor
to the
notice, or-
Abutting property owners. When we made that change several years ago.
So it is
This was
required.
added. Yeah.
So they didn't get it.
Did they send out an abutting notice, a notice to abutting neighbors?
Is that the building? Who sends it out?
Well, it's the applicant. Did you send?
Lino, could you please explain that? We did pause on this public part here.
Yeah, that's something I have to check out, because when this public hearing was scheduled, I believe it was back in July, when my partner was here. Again, that's something I have to confirm. So I will do that and make sure that either the notices did go out, and if they didn't go out, then we would have to do them.
Okay.
Okay, but I'll confirm
So
that.
you're definitely going to have to continue this hearing, then. There's no way we can't do that.
Well, right. I'm sorry. I thought that they had indicated that the affidavit was filed. So they have to file an affidavit.
Yeah, correct. That's why I want to check
At the
to make
beginning,
sure that,
indicating
because
that
I
it was
thought it was all done, but if that's the case, I want to confirm that that's correct, because if it's not, we want to.
Joe, you have an affidavit for which right now in front of you? What does it say?
We have an affidavit for publication of Douglas Horn that the Journal News just had notice.
Yeah, so just a publication in the print paper, not a notification of adjacent neighbors. Okay, that's a very important
Right,
distinction.
so then if that's the case, and I'll confirm that, then we will make sure.
And that
we
may
get
be the
notices.
reason if there was a mix-up. Was this the first night of the public hearing?
Yes, it
This
was.
is the first
Yeah.
hearing, yeah. They were
So
in
it
earlier,
should've-
but this is the first hearing.
Yeah, we were here back in
July when it was
July,
set,
right.
yeah.
For the presentation, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, Lino.
No problem. And if it's okay, I just wanted to address a couple of points.
Let
that
me
were
just see if there's
made.
anyone else who wants to get on the
Oh,
record
sure. I
first.
thought you were done with
Yeah,
public
I just
comment.
wanted, that was an important thing that I wanted to make sure we
apologies.
clarified right now. Is there anyone else here for public comment? And so you are aware, we are definitely going to be continuing it to clarify this issue. If you feel the need to speak tonight, go ahead. Mike?
Good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the Town Board. My name is Michael Mandel, resident of Pearl River. I am a member of the Planning Board, and my recollection is going back on when they came in for their original application to expand the conference center. Before we even got into the formal ones, we told them that on the internet, there was a website that said hotel rooms, rooms for rent. They took it down after we brought it up to their attention. And that was Eileen Larkin who found the site that showed it. Was more than one, I think. And one of the questions we asked them, is this going to be a hotel? And they stated, no, it wasn't going to be a hotel. It was an expansion of a conference center. Because one of the things I asked them was, well, you have a heliport there. You're going to continue the heliport? Yeah, because under the conference center, they could have a landing area. If you go to a hotel, that's got to be removed. But their statement was they were not looking to make a hotel. They wanted to expand the conference center. If they had asked for a hotel at that time, it would have been a totally different finding as far as the board would be concerned. So this is a little background information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. That's helpful. Anyone else for public comment in today's public hearing of this subject? No? Okay. So do we want to let Lino address a couple things brought up today, or do you have anything you want to?
Yeah, he can.
Then we'll continue afterwards. That way it's fresh.
If we're going to have to continue this,
Yeah.
well, we figure this out. But just a couple of comments from the public that I heard. We've heard a couple of people say that, H&A has been a good neighbor, and, we have been. And the reason what I stated earlier is, knowing this property, because I live in the community as well, it was being used as a hotel for years. I mean, people that were going to this property, who were not going to conferences, were actually staying there overnight. They were coming there. I know people, friends of mine who live in town who've actually stayed at the facility, who didn't attend any conferences, who stayed at that quote-unquote hotel. So when that was brought to our attention by to H&A, we did the right thing. We took it off the website, and we wanted to do it the right way. Now, with respect to this issue of use variance, zone petition, as your town attorney said, under town law, New York town law, H&A has that right to petition your board to change the zone. We also have the right to go for a use variance, but as the town attorney will tell you, and any other land use attorney, use variances, tough to come by. In 24 years that I've been doing land use, I probably had one use variance granted because it's different criteria. The other option that the applicant can avail themselves is the petition to change the zone, and that's what we're doing tonight. When we came before the board last year, correct, this H&A has owned the property since 2016. Correct, it was an expansion of a conference use, and that's what we came before. But again, in full disclosure, we've been at the property for 2 years. This property is H&A. They want to put $49 million in renovation into this site. And putting this hotel, allowing this hotel use, is really just furthering what's already been going on there for a number of years. In essence, to a basketball analogy, no harm, no foul in terms of what's been going on there. So I understand the public comment. I appreciate what's been said. We'll go back. We'll take a look at the noticing issues. But I just ask the board that they keep an open mind with respect to the zone change because, again, all we're doing is really continuing what's been used there. Yes, H&A has done their due diligence, but like anybody else, any other user to a property, they have a right to change their mind. They have a right to look at, see how things are progressing in the past couple of years. And again, you saw the article in Rivertown. They're going to sink a lot of money into this place. Again, I think it was $49 million in the article. And they want to make this a premier destination, and that's really what this is about. So again, I thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, so we have, I'm looking at the schedule for public hearings. We have 25th is full, but we have a workshop, so we have a regular town board meeting on the 23rd of October. So we have multiple public hearings on the 16th of October, but they're budget ones. And there's nothing scheduled for the 23rd of October. Does that make sense for everyone to continue this to? Or we could squeeze it in on the 16th if we want to, but it's the library's public hearing for budget and the Blauville Fire Protection District's public hearing for budget will be on that day. What do you guys think? 16th or 23rd? 23rd? 23rd October? Okay, so then if we can get clarification on that, make sure it's posted and get the affidavits and such. So I'm going to...
Lee, I don't think you have to clarify, you just got
You gotta do it if you haven't done. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, either it's been done and you didn't hand it in, or
Yeah, if it's done, we'll make sure we'll hand it in the cards. If it wasn't done, we have, I think, plenty of time between now and the 23rd.
This new one's going to be reposted anyway. Yeah, yeah. That's true. It's irrelevant at this point because you have to repost
Yeah, that's fine. But we'll just make sure we get it posted and notice for the 23rd of October.
Cross your I's and dot your T's this time, all right?
Understood.
All right, so I move we continue the public hearing to October 23rd at 8:05 p.m. Let me just make sure that's the correct date again before I make a mistake and screw us over.
Same time, 8:05?
8:05 p.m. on October 23rd. Yes. Is there a second? Councilman Divney, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming
Thank you
in. Okay. Sorry, a lot of papers here. Moving on. Yeah.
Make sure you tell, if anybody has any comments that they didn't say tonight, they can send an email into the town.
Yes. Or mail it,
Or
supervisor
mail
at
it, we can get it on the
orangetown.com.
record, all right?
Written comments are accepted throughout the entire public hearing. Thank you, Paul. All right. Sorry. All right, we're moving back into our budget presentations. Last was Palisades, so now we're on to the Blauville Library, if you're still here. Whenever you're ready. I'm sorry, you're handing something out. Whenever you're done handing that out. Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Got everybody? All right. How are you? Okay, everybody here? Town Supervisor Day, members of the Town Board, my name is Sal Pagnani. I'm a member of the Blauvelt Free Library Board of Trustees. Also with me is our Board President, Kerry Beckman, another board member, Elizabeth Brancanti, and our Director, Laura Grunworth. We're here this evening to respectfully request the town's funding for the library's 2019 fiscal year. Just a little background on 2018. The library expects to spend $1.32 million. This is comprised of $838,000 from its general operating expenses, and an estimated $485,000 related to its completion of its major renovation, which is scheduled to be completed later this month. Funding for the spending includes the $720K we received from the town, $144K from the South Orangetown School District, $13K from some miscellaneous grants, fines, etc., and $485,000 from our reserves, which was used to fund that our library renovation. In regards to the renovation, we're going to be having a grand reopening ceremony at the library, and it'll be held on September 22nd. We encourage everyone to come out and see the results of the renovation. That was spearheaded by our director. The result of the aforementioned 2018 spending and funding will be a projected surplus of $26,000 when one compares that to the public funding versus our library's general operating expenses. For 2019, we are projecting a spending plan of approximately $893,000, comprised of $843,000 for general operating expenses and an estimated $50,000 related to some additional capital improvements the library will likely undertake and fund via its reserves. This represents less than a 1% increase in our general operating expenses versus 2018. That being said, at current 2018 public funding levels versus our projected 2019 general operating expenses, we anticipate that we will run a surplus in 2019 of $20,000. That being the case, we are reducing our request for funding from the town of Orangetown by $20,000 and requesting $700,392 for 2019. In addition, regarding the town's request that the library use some of its reserves to fund part of its 2019 general operating expenses, the Board of Trustees is proposing that rather than reducing our 2019 town funding request further, the library would opt to send the town a check drawn from its reserves in the sum of $20,000. The Blauvelt Library will continue to work with the town on its funding needs and its reserve balance. To conclude, the Blauvelt Library continues to provide a vital and valuable service to the hamlet and all South Orangetown residents. We continue to see ourselves as much more than repositories for books and media. We provide very popular children's programs and many programs and educational opportunities for our senior citizens, and have helped to coordinate community activities through the assistance of our friends of the Blauvelt Library. Our director and staff continue to do an excellent job of providing a very high level of service that our patrons are looking for. In summary, we deliver those valuable services to our community, services that would likely not be available if the Blauvelt Free Library was not able to provide them. Please let us know if you have any questions regarding 2018 or 19, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Before anyone asks, I want to make on the record here, they came up to me, I had a meeting with them, and I pointed out that they had 106% fund balance, which is well above what would be normally standard in any sort of governmental industry, due to the great job they're doing managing their finances, and voluntarily came in and lowered their request beforehand to draw down a bit on that. And I don't think we should draw them down to the point where it's dangerous, but I just appreciate you guys doing that voluntarily ahead of time. It speaks to your willingness to manage things well.
Mr. Pagnani said, they have been working with us over the last several years, because I raised these issues about fund balances going back 10 years ago, somewhere in that ballpark. And I thought the Blauvelt Library was the most accommodating. And again, they had a big fund balance, but the most accommodating in terms of coming in with reasonable requests and also trying to reduce the fund balance. So I appreciate that.
Any other questions for them? No? All right, great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, that concludes our library section. Moving on to the first responders, we have Rockland Paramedics. Ray's here, I think, yeah. Where'd that paper go?
Good evening. My name is Ray Floyd. I'm the Executive Director of Rockland Paramedic Services. Thank you, Supervisor Day, members of the Town Board, and citizens of Orangetown. In 2018, we've seen an increase in our responses that it's probably going to surpass 2017 statistics of about 9%. We've also purchased a new paramedic unit, a brand new paramedic unit for services to the town of Orangetown. We're requesting a 4% increase, and the reason that we're requesting that is that we continue to find it difficult to recruit and retain our paramedics because of the increases that we're experiencing in medications, pharmaceuticals, daily operational expenses. We also have increases in malpractice insurance, health insurance, which is a very big issue for us. We experienced a 21% increase last year in our health insurance. So what we had to do was to increase the employee's contribution to the plan and also increase the deductibles, which is making it difficult on the paramedics that serve the town. We've trained one of the programs that we implemented, we trained all of the Orangetown police officers in the use of Narcan. We are a state-funded Narcan tracking agency for the New York State Department of Health. So any of the Narcan usage, we track all of that. We report that information to the New York State Department of Health, to the county, and we share that with the police departments also. An added value to our paramedic service, and this is at no cost to the town, we've implemented a mobile crisis team, which is funded through the New York State New York State Office of Mental Health. That mobile crisis team is working with the Orangetown Police Department and our ambulance corps to respond to mental health issues, crises, and also to counsel those that are addicted to opioids or other substances. So that's been working out very well. We have a licensed social worker and an EMS professional that staffs that unit, and that's at no cost to the town. So that's been something that we're pretty proud of, that we've been able to implement. And in conclusion, we fully realize that the town had budget issues, and just like everybody else, they're under constraints and so on. And we're sure that we operate in the most efficient manner possible to try and keep our expenses down. But the problem that I'm running into is that we're losing our personnel to New Jersey. You have the Valley Hospital, Hackensack Hospital, major medical institutions in New Jersey, which are offering packages, compensation packages to the paramedics that they're finding difficult to resist. Also, New York City, which is very close, so they make that commute down there, and Westchester County is also offering that. So I just ask you, when you consider our budget, to take that into consideration.
Quick question, the CERT team paramedics, are they included in this, or is that an additional item?
I'm sorry?
The CERT team, the SWAT guys, the
No.
paramedic unit is not included in this?
They're not included.
Okay. And are you guys following the background on that right now? Okay, so
I was contacted by the county, who said that they are going to take over that expense.
they changed
Yes.
their mind. Good, okay, excellent. There was a debate as to whether we would all, as towns, have to pay for the CERT team, or the county would take care of it as a county asset, and it looks like it was resolved in the last few days.
It
So,
was Guillermo Rosa had called
Good.
me and said that they're going to take care of all of that expense.
excellent, thank you, I'm glad to hear that.
Okay.
Any other questions before you say? No? All right, great. Blauvelt Fire Department, our fire protection district, technically.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Council. My name is Mike Conklin. I am a 45-year veteran of the fire service in Blauvelt, ex-chief, past president, and currently the treasurer. So I've been on all sides of the company budget, the operating side, the administrative side, and now the accounting side of it for the budget. The BVFC has provided fire protection for the community of Blauvelt for 73 years, professionally trained volunteers. The chief officers of the BVFC have worked to provide the 2019-2020 budget of $595,000. This is the same number for the past 2 years. We have worked and redone some of our lines to provide ones that needed increases and decrease some of the other ones. We have worked on our fund balance also to decrease that during some of our purchases during the years. We have some large purchases coming up this coming year, as we have 11 sets of turnout gear expiring in their 10-year absence. In other words, after 10 years, we have to throw it away. And that comes to $28,000. We have been working for this on the past 5 years by doing 5 sets each year to lessen the blow this year. We've caught up for the 10 years again, so we have 11 sets, and we had bought 41 back in '08. This is another new standard that's coming about, is our new hoods that we wear. They're $95 a piece. That's a $3,800, $4,000 for our men. But New York State requires it, NFPA requires it, and other contract pricing and stuff of that nature required. It's now for the carcinogens around our necks and stuff of that nature. It's a full shoulder. It's a different type of layers and barrier material. We have been in contact with New York State as far as budgeting. We've been doing Rockland County contracts, New York State contracts, and we did sign up for the shared services. And in the future for pricing, if it's better, along with matching savings from the New York State this year, we're really going to work with it. We've also looked at our insurance provider to help us out with a new policy, and we've also been working with our LoSAP program for awards. We have some capital improvements in the works for the firehouse for 2019-2020. Our apparatus floor drains are giving us some issues, and the epoxy floor will need to be replaced or repaired after the drain work has been done. We are now also going into a O&R audit, making the building better green, looking at more LED, more efficient air condition compressors, and now we're getting into our boiler and hot water heater at this time. We're 21 years into the new building. We call it the new building, but we're already 21 years into the new firehouse. Again, we're always looking to save money, and also we are working with decreasing our legal costs and keeping the budget where it is.
A quick question. Do you have, what's the exact fund balance again now?
Fund balance at this, you should have copies that I gave you.
Yeah,
At this time, it's $2,738,059.56.
And do you know where, I'm sorry, did you know where that stands in relation to the other guys we don't fund, like the Palisades, Spark Hill, and Orangeburg? Like what's the normal
They would
amount
all
for a
have to
fire
be in the
department?
same range, because when you start to replace fire equipment, as far as fire trucks and budgeting, we've extended our budget out to 25 years on a vehicle. We used to use it 20, and we tried to save some taxpayer money there. One vehicle, one cost of, let's say, an average pumper, $750,000 to $1 million today. So with that in mind, it takes usually 1 to 2 years to build, and then we have different years of replacement. When we built the firehouse 21 years ago, we took a hit on trucks. What happened at that point is we reserved our monies to build the firehouse, and our pumpers were getting older. New requirements came out, seating, seat belting, we had open cabs, we had tailgate riding at those days, all gone by the wayside. So we started to put together our balances to project the replacement of those vehicles down the road. A couple years back, we gave you a plan on our replacement of them. This year, we're looking real hard into our mini pumper, and that will probably be about a $300,000 expense. We'll probably write a check for the chassis sometime in 2019 with completion in 2020.
Okay.
And that would be coming from the fund balance.
All right.
And we've been cutting them, they've been
Yeah,
working.
yeah, I see the history, yeah.
2014, we're lower now than we were back then, so. they-
Correct.
Diligently.
Correct.
Just so the board knows, on the sheet, you'll see 638,500. That's because the town's purchases the workers' comp insurance.
Correct.
For the Blauvelt Fire Protection District, and so that's estimated at 43.5. That's why that number differs from 595,000.
Correct. We always add that the workman's comp comes on top of it.
From the operating budget, I understand, yeah.
Because you buy it group, I
Yeah,
guess,
we
in
buy
the
as a
savings,
group, it's
because we looked
cheaper,
at it,
yeah.
a couple of times, whether we should fund it or not, and
Yeah.
makes sense to do it through the town.
Makes sense, yeah. Other questions? Great.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, South Orangetown Ambulance Corps.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Pete Romisher. I think you're all familiar with me. Steve Harris, Chief. Ken Greenblatt, President of the Corps. Going back on these presentations I've been making you guys, I realized I've never thanked you for your past support that you've given to the ambulance corps. I've always just made the presentation. So we do want to thank you for your past support and appreciate any future support that you're going to give. We're currently presenting you with our proposed 2019 budget request. The same net number as previous years, $400,000, made up of $543,000 for the ambulance operations account, ambulance administrative portion of the budget, $398,000, for a grand total of $941,000, less the revenue recovery contribution of $541,000 this year, for the same net number of $400,000 that we've asked you for, I think, going back to 2011 or so. Long time. It is still our plans to make a board motion for the $100,000 offset to the ALS contract that we usually give the check to Jeff the first week of January. We're answering over 2,200 calls a year. It is becoming commonplace for us to have 3 ambulances on the road at the same time, as was the case today. 6 total vehicles, a 2014 Ford van front chassis, 2 2015 Ford van front chassis, a 2001 International ambulance that we use to transport MCI rehab equipment, and 2 first response vehicles. I think the square footage of our current headquarters is 6,000 feet. I know many of you have been there. Kier Levesque was retained by the board of directors for an expansion plan in the building because we're pretty much maxed out, at least as far as vehicles are concerned. We're going to add, hopefully, with board approvals over the next 2 years. We think it's going to take about a year to get through the approvals of the various boards. 4 additional bays, 2 of which will house the fly cars that we have. 1, hopefully, a specialty vehicle that'll start transporting the generator that we have on loan from the county, the heating and air conditioning unit that we use for our rehab tent that we'll be using this week at the Piermont Fire Department parade. So we're excited to be working with Kier and Don Brenner on that project. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. We're happy we're community members serving the community, and we have members behind us in attendance tonight, and I appreciate them coming tonight, showing their support for the officers and the members of the Corps.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Great. Thank you for your service.
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
And I don't know the rules, but Nyack Community Ambulance Corps.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Councilman. William McDowell, Nyack Community Ambulance Corps. You know who we are, you know what we do. We're asking for a 2% increase over 2018 funding for a total budget to the town of Orangetown for $418,756.79. We currently have fund balances totaling $584,498.61, broken down into $367,677 for a new building, capital improvement. New ambulance fund is $159,000. We're currently on a 12-year cycle. Our next ambulance, I believe, is scheduled to be purchased in 2021. We were recipients of a $140,000 grant from the town of, or from the New Bridge Authority, so it moved up our last purchase, so we were fortunate and everyone saved money for that. And then also, our new equipment fund has a balance of $61,329, once again for a total of just under $600,000 in our fund totals. And once again, key to point out here is that our funding for 2019 is 17% less than it was for 2012 funding. So with that, if you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Any questions? No. Thank you. All right, great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so that concludes our libraries and special districts, and just, gentlemen, for you to see the numbers on water districts, which we have no control over, came in really good this year. It was 12% last year. It's going to be 3.2% this year. So that's good news, unexpected. Moving on, we're going to go back to a couple of discussion items. We've been talking about doing the Pearl River parking meter map. It sent around a couple of possibilities. We tried to get people to offer comment back in August, and I think maybe that was a bad month for it. At some point, maybe this month or next month, we have to basically overlay the zones that were approved when we adopted the 30-minute parking zone. We can do it exactly in just one spot, but the idea is that since the committee was defunct that set the original parking map, we just sort of adopt the map as a whole as we want it now. And what we can do, if everyone's okay with it, we can always adjust it as we see fit, but bring in a map and approve it basically at the end of this month or early next month.
If it's a 30-minute parking zone,
Yeah.
is that a quarter for 30 minutes?
No, there's the quarter. I think it's the same price.
Quarter for an hour, 50 cents for 2 hours right now.
What's the 15-minute zone? I don't know.
15 minutes.
So
is
I think it's a quarter.
That's a
I'm pretty sure it's a quarter for
That's
yeah.
a quarter for
Yeah.
the 15 minutes. So my question then is, if you're going to have a 30-minute zone,
Which
is
we-
that going to
yeah.
be 30 minutes is going to be a quarter?
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, just.
No, which is then the 30-minute zone. We created the authority to do a 30-minute zone back in January. Everyone thought we were doing it in a specific spot. But all we did was change the law to allow for it. Now the question is when and where do we put the 30-minute
That's a
zone?
question. I get
You
it.
know, so.
It's fine.
But yeah, it was
Just checking.
it's an option. Yes, that is true though, Dennis. So if everyone's okay with it, then I'll bring in a couple of maps or a few maps
Yeah,
to the next
we'll see
meeting.
that.
Throw it up on the screen. We'll say move this, don't move that. We'll see if anyone wants to offer public comment on it. It's not a hearing required thing, it's a resolution. So
Okay.
we just want to make sure people give their input.
All right.
We good with that? Okay,
I think it's a good idea.
cool. And then we all got this thing, the request for permission for installation of a new drainage project, a water course diversion permit. Rob, what need to be done with this? Is this like, are we going to have to bring them in for a hearing if we want to? We already received it today. You should have.
Are we approving something? What do we approve?
No, it's specifically, it's a water course diversion permit. They're changing the route of water, essentially. So if you can,
In other words, there's a stream there or some type of,
Where is that?
that, I know that it was before the planning board for subdivision last year.
Sunrise Lane, Pearl River.
Okay, Jane may be able to answer, but I
Yeah, Jane, you probably have background on this, right? Maybe. Sure, when I see what we have to do to maybe bring the applicant in or whatever, Jane, if you could explain it a little.
Yes, it was a previously approved subdivision that didn't have a dwelling on it. And the town has a drainage pipe that comes through it. And the history of that pipe, Mr. Dean can speak to. He knows about it. But the applicant has come to try to go through planning board, and Bruce Peters kept bringing up the fact that you can't build the house right next to the town's drainage pipe. It has to be relocated. So the only way they can do this is by the stream diversion permit. So I haven't seen the plan with the new location, but they have a written description that show, they're supposed to.
You don't need to read it now, but I don't know how to read it.
It has to be 15 feet off the house. And they kept coming back to PRC, and we kept telling them, you can't build this house. So the only route that they could do is to come before you and get approval for a stream diversion permit.
So they're asking us to move our drainage, asking for them to allow
move
them
this-
to move our drainage pipe, essentially.
Well,
Giving
the
them permission
stream
to move
itself, and then they'll put in a pipe.
With a
to
pipe.
stream-
They're moving the
yes.
stream via a pipe, is what you're
Correct.
saying. They want
So-
to.
I mean, we need approval from Jimmy and,
Yes.
you know,
And-
the sewer department before
Right.
we consider.
Right, as
No,
well
I know,
as
that's what I'm not
DEM.
saying. I don't make sure it came addressed to us specifically, so.
Assume the county drainage.
There was drainage done a
only-
couple of years ago because this is a wet area.
So they have a lot, so what's the next step? Are we actually the next step, or do they just write the letter to us?
Yes, they're
We're the next
they're
step.
dead in the water at this point if they don't
We're the
get
only
your
people that
approval.
can deal with the issue at the town board level.
Right.
You're the entity generating the permit, if you're so inclined, again, obviously.
But there's no, it's just on, it's not like we have to go send it for review by someone. We might ask for our departments to give their opinions on it, obviously, but if
Correct.
we hear it, we don't have to hear it either, right, Rob?
Correct, it's a public hearing, right, it's a request
So the question is, do we bring them in to make a presentation to us to then set a public hearing on it if we want to after we hear their presentation?
Right, and they'd still have to go through the planning board.
After they
once
get
you
the
grant
permit?
that,
It's the same
and they'd
thing as a zone change or as a special permit, essentially?
I don't
In
even
terms of the
know that
process,
it's that, I don't
Rob.
think it's even that you
Not
know,
even that big.
complicated, but they need to get, they'd have to get your approval to relocate the stream, and then they'd have to go back through all the boards. And drainage engineering would have to be done and approved by DEME, as well as highway would be
It
involved.
seems similar to a special permit, isn't it?
Yeah.
They'd be relocating the right-of-way, the easement.
Correct.
So my suggestion is that we just invite them in to make a presentation at the next meeting. I just wanted to see if everyone's okay with inviting them in. We got it today, so I just threw it on the agenda to see before I contacted them. essentially.
Yeah, and again, they've been told for, I don't know, 4 or 6 months that they have to do this. So it's not.
So they've been,
They've been at the planning board?
I don't think they've actually gotten to the planning board. I have to double check my notes, but they have been at PRC twice, and Bruce said,
this is
you
their
can't
holdup.
do this.
They can't do it because
Correct.
of the easement. It's blocking their project. is what
Right,
you're
because
saying.
Bruce, the way it sits now, Bruce cannot approve it.
Before I have them come in here, I'd like to get them, as a requirement, I'd like them to notify everyone on Sunrise and the street below them. You get them in there, because my concern is that we're gonna have them come in, we're gonna have, and I know that area. It's a lot of wetlands down there, I'd like
Well, they
to
would
get-
still have to be noticed, because it
Yeah,
would be a
'cause there'll
public hearing.
No, but like,
Before we have them in, I think we got to get the Rockland County Drainage Authority, Jimmy's department, and the sewer department to take a look at this.
Well, they have
have
because
they?
they've made application to the planning board. So there is a background, which I can pull together for you. I can have
Okay,
Cheryl,
so
the
Jane,
clerk,
if you
send
could,
it out.
if you and Cheryl, you could have Cheryl please gather any relevant documents on that, send it to the board, we'll circle back around, and if everything's at least,
Right.
Brenner wrote the letter, but it's,
That's how it came up, because they started the
who the
process, and
company is.
Bruce looked at the plans as well as Jimmy Dean and said, this is not going to work. So they started the process.
so, okay, so we'll just, basically, the only thing that they can do is come to us, so they're coming to us. So we'll see if we can gather all the information and see if it's worth bringing them in at least to talk about.
Yeah. So I can forward all the letters from the other agencies that were received. Do you want this back?
I'll take that back, yes, thank you. It's the Krieger estate, but I don't think that's the company name.
And again, Mr. Dean's here, so he can,
Yes.
if you want a little bit more history on it.
Jim, do you have any background on it that was relevant now, or do you want to just take time and write something down? It's up to you.
Yeah, but this is not unusual for water course diversion. We've had this before.
We have.
And the engineering has told them, and I agree, that you can't build a house that close to our existing drainage. We actually don't even have any easements there. It was just water that ran through there. So now they're gonna have to give us an easement and relocate the drainage away from the building to another area. And I think that's what that design is showing. What it still has to meet engineering standards. And I think there's calculations on the new design that show them that they're meeting those standards, which would have to be approved by DEME. Our objection was I didn't want to take over responsibility of maintenance to a stream 5 feet from the foundation of a house.
Yeah, I think
To
it
its
was even
current
less. They originally
location.
came in, they were 2.5 feet off the foundation.
Somebody just resubmitted the plan and didn't
With-
look. And Bruce picked it up right away and said, you can't do this.
where is
You
it
need to
located on
relocate
Sunrise? That around the bend?
It's right on the sharp turn.
Yeah, I know
Know where
that.
Kruger lived?
Yeah, I used to cut through there to get to know her.
Okay, well, it was one big piece of property. His estate sold it, they carved it into 2 pieces, which was approved, and now they're trying to build a house on the vacant piece. However, it has a stream that runs right through it.
Right.
It can be piped, it can be done, but it has
They
to
have
be
to move it
engineered.
further
and it
east.
needs to be moved away from the existing house.
Is a petition for basically a drainage special permit, essentially. We're giving them permission to move where the stream's going, and then everything is like engineering-wise has to pass the smell test.
Yeah, the code requires that if you can move a stream, but you have to get the town board to approve it based on your decision.
Our
based
just
on
decision.
Engineering.
On the facts, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
They make reference to a 24-inch pipe, and they're going to install a 36-inch pipe based on the
Okay.
letter they submitted. So they'll have to deal with the drainage. It'll all have to be engineered at their cost.
My fear is if we go ahead and do this without all the knowledge, if we start flooding people upstream and downstream, I'm not taking responsibility.
Well, no, that's why they have to, That's why they have to meet the engineering standard.
Correct, they'll have
DEME
to.
is not going to give them approval.
No, it has to be from DME, from you.
They give the approvals, but do they do that before?
correct.
They do that after we give them permission, they would give approvals, is what you're saying, right? Or they approve the process that they present to us beforehand? Do they
No.
approve these plans?
I don't think, the engineering
Okay, were we
happens after
chicken or
you
egg?
approve them the ability to relocate it
In concept.
in concept, then they have to go through all the engineering.
It's like kind of having like the ZBA approving variances for something after we
Well,
give a special permit to do
I
it.
think what Paul's asking for, as I said, this is going to be a public hearing.
Right.
So at the public hearing, I would expect that DEME will say, we have no objection to this, or, or they'll have to do whatever calculations they have to do before you have to make a decision. So I think,
Right, and you'll
When they
receive
originally-
letters
when
from
they-
each department.
Jim reminded me, when they originally came in for the subdivision, typically when you come in for a subdivision, everything is set up and both, however many lots, everything is okay. Bruce actually brought this up originally when it was subdivided 3 or 4 years ago, 2 years ago, I forget what it was. And the planning board put a specific condition on that if this lot, which they're talking about, wanted to be, buildable or have a house on it, it would have to go for site plan, which is what it's doing now. So that's what's kind of brought this to a head. But Paul, I agree. I don't think you're going to be approving it unless DEME and their engineer, they're going to have their engineer sign off.
Yeah, all right, so-
I think,
Correct.
It's a different type of drainage issue in terms of with the house there and things of that nature, but in terms of diverting the water course.
Because it was caught during the subdivision, like Rob is saying, a single lot in ownership doesn't have to go back to the planning board for engineering. But there has been, in recent years, some lots, Ryerson Place being one, where they knew there were issues. So they made it a condition of the planning board approval for the subdivision that the single lots have to go back so that the engineering is done properly.
So this is one of those type of things?
Correct.
I wish Lino had stayed, because we could just do it right now, but either way, so basically, the question is, do we just bring them in to make a presentation or not, to tell us about what they think? And we could deny the public hearing if we don't like it. I mean, it's just like a zoning change application, in that sense. We can have them come in next meeting, make a 10-minute presentation.
They can make a presentation, but until we get the.
Right, we need all the background
the
from,
okays,
Right.
nothing's happening
yeah.
anyway.
Right, and in
Exactly.
the meantime, since we have a couple of weeks,
Gather
I can have
stuff.
Cheryl send everything out
Okay.
to you guys so that you can review it and be familiar with what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Kind of a unique thing there. All right, moving on. We have a few voting resolutions tonight. Yeah, well, we won't be in this room by the end of this month. I don't know why we're in here because it has air conditioning and it's hotter than it is in the other half of the building. I don't understand. Anyway, our first resolution, we are pleased to announce that we have identified a replacement for our Commissioner of DEME, who is retiring. His name is Eamon Riley. He is a very highly qualified applicant from the private sector, and he's also a civil engineer, which is important. So we're going to have a motion to appoint him effective September 10th. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second. Councilman Troy, all in favor? Aye. Great. Next, we have to authorize the sewer settlement that we had previously discussed. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Troy, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. The next one, we talked about this previously. The town board had set that the planning board and zoning board of appeals had to do their meetings in the town hall. It's caused a lot of issues, but the main reason they removed was so that they could be recorded on and broadcast on TV. The IT folks have come up with a solution to record and broadcast it on TV in Greenbush, which gives them access to their records. It gives them, they're with everything they need to be. There's approximately the same capacity. In this, however, the only thing they wouldn't have is live broadcast, but we can then say, hey, for this particular issue, we need you in the town hall for live broadcast, because it's a very hot button issue. Most of the time, it'll be broadcast on tape delay in Greenbush. They've asked, the planning board and ZBA have effectively said, unless you lock us out, we're going to be going to Greenbush anyway.
The only question I would have is the lighting in Greenbush good enough? Or do you need stronger lighting in order to record it?
Oh, in order to record it, I'll leave that to IT, but,
Well, I just,
yeah,
to me, it's like a.
the other boards, even
it's like a
zoning has
dungeon
been
in
there.
but, huh?
Zoning didn't follow that.
Yeah, they never left.
The previous resolution a couple of
Do they
years back.
televise?
They've stayed down there.
They don't televise on ZBA.
Unless there's a big one.
No, they haven't complied. What we're trying to do is essentially get to something that everyone will listen to. Yeah.
Maybe IT,
My
the
recollection.
lighting should be
There
looked.
wasn't a resolution, it's just that we were talking about it, and the planning board said there would be a test case to go up there. That was my recollection.
Rob, I thought you said that it was some sort of
no,
action.
there were resolutions on both. I didn't see that there were any resolutions.
Yeah, it's in here.
Undoing it?
2016-433 and 2016-434.
And one of the reasons, as Jay mentioned, was not only to be broadcast live, but as Greenbush, when you had the projects of greater public interest and it got full, the parking lot got crowded, the room got crowded. I understand the room's a little nicer now. Again, we could ask Anthony, I guess, about the lighting, but my understanding is in speaking to planning board members, it's a little more user-friendly when they're kind of at that desk that's down at Greenbush, as opposed to being up high and the applicant's down low, and it just, I think, it's a little more conducive to, laying out the plans.
Correct.
And in
Intimidating
the
for the
circumstance
applicants in
where you
certain
need to come up to town hall, the board can request that or demand it, I should say.
Chris, just again,
Yes,
remember
Paul?
we have money inside that cable
Yes.
television fund?
That's what we're going to allocate for this camera setup.
And we can't make it where it's live?
No, well, the
Well,
thing is, we're
because you
trying to
need
find a
personnel.
cost-effective one, and it's the personnel thing. So
it's
we're going to have someone flick a
Okay.
switch. It'll be a single camera, single mic setup, just like honestly, most of the town boards do it that way. We have a really good camera
Yeah,
setup thanks
it'll
to our
be me.
volunteer and to our.
So I'm
IT.
sure if we had to upgrade the lighting and it was part of
It would be part of the camera
system,
setup, yes. We
still
could
be able
definitely
to-
work to include that in
Right.
the
I
budget
mean-
for the camera lighting setup.
Obviously, we're still going to be there a couple more years, so whatever we can do to make it work. But we haven't had a lot of hits on it. It's not like a lot of people
Yeah.
are going to watch it live. There's a
And
couple.
either way, it'll be broadcast in the same venues or the same, it'll be on YouTube, it'll be on
Correct.
the cable channels. It's just not that moment will it be. And then in certain circumstances, it will be if it's that important, if it's another, barn burner of a hearing that we have to.
Correct. We can always move it up on a
Okay, so
case-by-case basis.
Councilman Troy had the motion already, and Councilman Valentine with the second. All in favor? Aye. Great. Then this next one, this is we discussed the alternative study for the sewer ammonia treatment thing, to get another study for lower cost alternatives, to sort of a due diligence thing, to see if we can avoid the $40 million in another way, rather than just consolidation. It's a $23,000 study, and the intent is that it might give us to a much lower cost to comply and even if it does also do the consolidation, maybe it's consolidated in a different way that makes it even cheaper. So it's a different firm, fresh look. Mike Weber's been working with them. Does anyone have any questions that maybe they want to ask Mike directly, or do you want to? No? Okay. Is there a motion on this one, then? Councilman Batari, second from,
I'll second. I
Okay.
just don't know why why we don't have it on a regular town board meeting. Doesn't seem like it's not a rush, I don't think.
well, it's been sitting for a while. We have a deadline going. We're going to lose 3 weeks. The problem is it's 3 weeks from now, and we have to get this done by a certain time for the DEC compliance. It's the only reason it's on for vote, but it's a good point. All right. Who was the second on that one?
I'll second.
Valentine. All in favor? Great. And then we have a few more that are, again, time things, because the next regular town board meeting is the end of the month because of the Jewish holidays. We have a bike ride for braking aids on Sunday, September 16th, the use of town roadways, 10:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Is there a motion on this one? Councilman Divney, second Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Approve and lend aid for the 10th anniversary procession for the Interdenominational Christian Fellowship on Saturday, September 15th. That's from 5 to 6 p.m. for barricades, police detail, etc. Is there a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? Great. Approve lend aid to the South Nyack 10-miler race committee Sunday, September 9th for 8 porta-johns. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second from Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Lend aid and assistance to the Italian feast, September 5th, 13th to 16th, for traffic control and such. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari? Councilman Valentine with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have a couple of personnel things with the Housing Authority. It's a motion to accept the resignation of the member and chairman, Paul Whalen, from the Orangetown Housing Authority. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy with the motion, second from Councilman Divney. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, and to accept the resignation of Walter Wetchy as member and treasurer of the Orangetown Housing Authority. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have resolutions to appoint in those vacancies. To appoint Quentin Van Wynen, chairperson of the Orangetown Housing Authority. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
It's not the, Bob Nealon is the chairperson.
It's not chairperson.
It's not chairperson.
Okay, strike that member. And we're going to have to, do we have to appoint Bob the chairperson? Is he elected?
No, he's elected.
He was elected last June, so, okay.
We're good. So there was just a, okay, so we're good on the
He was
chairperson.
elected last June by the Housing Authority Board.
Right,
Okay.
they selected.
They select the chairperson. Okay, that's just that he was the chairperson. Now he's got it. Okay, just to be clear, that's member. And sorry, Bob, if you're listening, we didn't mean to kick you out there. Motion to appoint Sean Walsh to the other vacancy in the Orangetown Housing Authority. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Troy. This does not make him treasurer, though, correct? This is just member. And then they vote on treasurer?
I haven't talked him into that yet.
Okay, so please strike and treasurer from the motion.
I'm working.
Rosanna? So it'd just be as a member. And again, the last one is just as a member, not and chairperson. So it's just as a member of the Orangetown Housing Authority. Then proposed resolutions. Now we're done with the voting, and we're moving on to stuff that's being workshopped. The next one is for the public hearing on the town code for electric vehicle charging stations, in which Rob incorporated all the suggested changes to make it a little more flexible for us. And then the next one after that is the secret neg deck, and then the motion to adopt the local law. And then we have the to close continue. I think we have those are backwards, right? Yeah, the close continue should be at 24, and the other one should be followed down. We're gonna make that edit. And then we have to open and continue the public hearing on the pods temporary storage containers. And then we have to continue or close it. And then we have secret and neg deck on the subject. A few more pages. And then we have the actual adoption to, resolution to adopt the local law, which is attached. Then we set the public hearing for the Blauvelt Fire Protection Fire District for October 16th of 2018 at 8 p.m. Will be voted on next meeting. Then also to set the public hearing for the Orangetown Library District for October 16th at 8:15 p.m. Following that, we have the resolution to authorize we discussed this a few months ago now, but it's finally sort of been kicked around enough, the purchase of the message board sign that would then be operated with the usage agreement by the Rotary in Pearl River for a public message board sign for $14,985. Then a proposed resolution to recognize tenant representative Sharon Ogden of the Orangetown Housing Authority. We don't appoint her, we're just recognizing her election. Then a resolution to designate Highway Department Adopt a Spot as the official maintenance and inspection supervisor. Effectively, we have this Adopt a Spot program, which is already doing a great job underway. It generally falls under highway, but there's no formal designation, so Jim was hoping for a formal designation and just clarity that it comes out of the general fund for that sort of thing, which is fair since it's kind of my idea and you're doing the work for it. So it's not going to come out of your fund then, Jim. Then we have a specific Adopt a Spot for the Pearl River train station. We got permission from the state to make the Pearl River train station restaurant get repainted, and we have someone volunteer their time to do that, a professional company, to make it look nicer, because it looks like not very good now.
Car crash.
Like there's a car crash through and there's plywood on there, so we're getting it looking good, even though the state doesn't want to.
The MTA.
Yeah, the MTA, oh boy. Then approving the agreement for mobile parking services. This is what we discussed, where someone will be able to pay on their phone with an additional processing fee, but it will not affect the rates of the meters. You can still use quarters for the same price, and there's no fee to the town. Then a proposed resolution to award the contract for professional mechanical engineering services related to the ALOOF thing, and that's really generally, but it's specifically going to be first applied to ALOOF to evaluate the performance standards. Now, background on this, and if anyone has questions, Jane can answer more, but tomorrow's meeting of the ZBA, they're going to give their bless off on it, and then in order to speed the process up and save us the couple of weeks, we're going to vote on it on Saturday's previously announced budget special town board meeting, because otherwise we're going to lose 2 or 3 weeks on it, and they're ready to work otherwise. So, Jane, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, the only thing is, I think this should read at the recommendation of the zoning board. This is
Okay.
actually not my recommendation.
That's
They're
fair.
making the selection. I just facilitated the RFP.
Thank you. So upon the recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals to award contract/professional mechanical engineering services, and we will fill in those blanks when they vote tomorrow at their meeting, and then vote on it on Saturday. Parks and Rec has some lend assistances. We have one for the Nyack Red and Black Club Food Truck Festival on September 30th for the showmobile. We have a resolution to approve a memorial bench donation in Veterans Memorial Park in loving memory of Marty Seresnick. Then we have a resolution to extend the agreement for applied golf at Blue Hill and Broadacres. That town attorney is still working on the language for that, but the original agreement does provide for extensions without rebidding, so we will be able to do that. As you know, they're having some issues with retaining employees not knowing whether they're going to have it placed for an extended period of time. Then resolution to lend aid for the Noble Ninth Trauben Fest. That's Noble Ninth being the Masonic Fairgrounds. Sunday, October 7th, showmobile rental again for Sunday, October 7th for the Trauben Fest. Then approve the this is under highway now, Columbia Presbyterian University Ride to End Cancer, use of town roadways for October 7th from 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then we are going to be accepting, at the end of the month, the resignation retirement of Mike Yanazone after 40 years, the dedicated second in command of the Highway Department. Then extending the municipal lump sum agreement for snow and ice. Then approving Lochner Engineering agreement extension for construction inspection services related to the Route 340 sidewalk project for $48,000. Award bid for Route 303 culvert design, which we're just waiting on the language for. And to award bid for the Greenbush Road bicycle bypass construction project. Jim, do you want to explain that? Or do you want me to just do a quick summary? It's up to you. Or have you talked to everyone?
I can give you a little bit.
Just like a 30-second.
Two of the board members, I just got the final information recently. We went out to bid for the bypass, and we only got one bid, and it was $179,000. Our engineering estimate was $136,000, and we have $100,000 from Senator Carlucci's office to pay for it. Concern is that the bid got out late. There's a lot of competition for work right now, and our proposal required that it be done in 120 days, and we think that might have had some impact on a number of bidders that we got. So we'd like to suggest that we rebid it with a start date of May 2019 and see what we come up with the numbers. Otherwise, the town either has to come up with more money as a contribution from the senator or somebody, or pick up the difference in funds. We've already spent $37,000 on survey and land clearing. So, I mean, I think when we initially kicked around how much we would use, we thought 150,000. I think that was the proposal to the senator. They came back with 100,000. So I think we'd be in, if everybody can agree that we know we'll be able to start in the spring of next year, I think it's a much better way for us to go at either one, getting better prices, and two, maybe finding a way to come up with some extra funding so we don't have to go into the general fund.
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
While you're up there, Jim, different
Yeah.
topic, Middletown Road. How's that project coming?
It's been submitted, the final design is submitted about 2 weeks ago. It's on target to be constructed in 2019.
Spring of 2019.
Yeah. Yeah. We're hoping that within the next 4-6 weeks, we'll get the authorization to go out to bid, which puts us in a good.
No,
which
no,
is-
not the solar panels. This is the actual
No,
construction
this
of the
is-
road.
Panels. No, that's Como's solar panels.
Yes, they're Cuomo's. They're not ours.
So basically, that's where we are. We're waiting for the state to come back and say it's okay to go out to bid. And we're hoping that's going to happen before the end of September.
Gotcha.
And then we'll find out what the numbers come in at.
Okay. And we also have one more, I was going to do in miscellaneous or new business, but we had another thing that didn't quite make it on for a workshop for the renaming, or not renaming, but I guess the memorial designation of Main Street in Japan from Washington to New York, New Jersey border. Was it Mike Dietrich way? Dietrich. What was his rank again?
I believe it was
Private first class. Was killed in the Korean War. That was requested by the Legion Post? Yes. Legion Post requested it down there. So it's right across where the Japan Firehouse is. It's kind of the same thing we did for the Mel Liebman Way over in Pearl River. There's a blue sign. I have the language that Stefan sent over to Jerry. We'll try to get it on the workshop agenda.
The highway department does a great job at coming up with these signs.
So, in case you had any
The sign
questions.
is easy.
The sign's easy, right? You got that?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I
It's a
know
blue
it
one,
was-
though. Can you?
It was in the info that he sent up that it was done for a specific period of time.
Yeah,
But
that
you're
was
not
one of the things,
Completely
yeah.
changing the name of the street,
Yeah.
so it doesn't impact deeds, it doesn't impact,
So legally, just to make it so it's not accidentally really.
it's an
renamed.
honorary naming.
What's that?
Did we read this yet?
No, it's on.
No, we didn't vote on that yet. What's up with it? Was it a bike run? Oh, is it the hospital or the university?
Columbia University.
Yeah. To be fair, I have a degree from that school, so I'm a little.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you, Jim. Anyway, last one. Caitlin Morrison, Assessing Clerk 1, to basically shifting positions over to a slightly different job title, is the last one to workshop. Any other things to discuss before we move to executive session? No? Okay. So we have several adjournments. Adjourning in memory of, I'm just going to say as a motion, so I move that we move to executive session to discuss personnel, and then immediately after adjourn in memory of Sister Joanne Deas of the former administrator of Spark Hill Dominican Convent, Paul Felix, the brother of one of our town employees, Mary Anselmi from the PD, Roselle Fisher, wife of former councilman Ed Fisher, Kevin Highland, uncle for one of our town employees, my assistant Amanda, and in memory of United States Senator John McCain of the state of Arizona, passed. And one more, sorry.
Bill Donovan.
Bill Donovan.
Was a deacon at St. Margaret's Church.
Okay. Any other to add there? All right, thank you very much. Is there a second? Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you all very much. And that's executive session for personnel.